All right, everybody. What is going on? Hopefully, this is working right now. This is only my second live that I've done, and hopefully, you can hear me. And hopefully, this is looking all right for you. So, what I want to talk today about, first of all, thanks for joining me. I appreciate. I might try and do this a few times a week, hopefully, just to give you some more juicy voiceover tips that'll help you professionally, either you're beginning or intermediate or more advanced. I'm broadcasting live from the home studio. This is actually just the setup for the YouTube that we usually have, which we've got a great one coming out this coming Monday, and it's all about punch and roll for Adobe Audition, Audacity, Reaper, and Pro Tools. But today, what I want to talk about, 5 tips to being professional in a session, and then what I do afterwards. So hopefully this will help you. And I've got my fancy notes here, just so I don't get off track. So let's just hop right into it. So for sessions with voiceover, a lot of times, well, in the past, it used to be that we would go into a studio, right? Yeah, that's kind of gone the way of the dodo. It still happens, but I know for me, the majority of my gigs are just in my room that I have set up with my microphone acoustically treated. Sounds great. Heidi's in a 4x6 whisper room that I treated it with acoustic panels and bass traps and everything. Sounds great. Hopefully, you've got a space that's dedicated. And if you need help with that space, we've got a guy, Dan Friedman of Sound for VO. I'll put a link in the notes if you want to get your home studio checked out. He's our voiceover professional. He's been an engineer for decades as well as a voiceover talent, so he knows how it needs to sound. He can help you out. So all I had to say, we're now recording from home for the most part. I could have actually gone into a session a couple of weeks ago, but my agent never told me where it was, and everybody's just used to doing things through Source Connect now, that it was like, oh, well, I guess I'm doing this here. And the engineer thought that I would actually be there. Go Paul over at Acoustech Music. Great engineer, by the way. Okay, so let's get into it. 5 tips to being professional in a session. Now, this used to be, as you go into the studio, be punctual, arrive on time. Same thing applies. Yes, you're in your booth, but make sure you're just settling in 15 minutes beforehand. Calm yourself down if you're used to having nerves. If you're, when you go into a session, if you have those nerves, do what you need to do to calm down. Double check everything. Make sure that you have your scripts. Make sure that the tech is set up. If it's through Source Connect, most likely a lot of engineers will say, hey, can we set up a Source Connect test before? Sometimes it's 15, 20 minutes before. Sometimes it's a day before. It just depends. So have all that set up so that you're nice and chill and ready for that session to begin at the appropriate time. And also, that goes along with that, it's just a part of being not only professional, but showing respect for others as well. But make sure you have everything set up. Number 2, come prepared. Familiarize yourself with the script, understand the tone, practice any words that you might have had issues with. I have made the mistake of not looking at scripts, and then thankfully it worked out. A lot of times the writers and people who are directing, they're like, that's all right, we didn't know what that word is either. You know what, let's look it up now and just make sure. But it just looks better as a professional if you come in there either A, already done the homework, or B, asking those questions. You know what? I've heard it this way. I've heard it that way. How do you guys want it? I just had it the other day with data and data. I auditioned with data, and then when we were in the session, they were going back and forth saying, "Oh, yeah, do we want data or data?" Turns out they wanted it like the Star Trek character, data. Number 3, follow directions. Listen carefully to the director's feedback and adjust your performance as requested without resistance. Now, I don't know too many people who are too many talent who give resistance or, say, well, I wouldn't do that if I was producing it. If that's the case, there's some whole other issues that are going on there. But what I do find is that when we were back in the day and having other working with other talent, either being in the same room with them, they would consistently talk over the director or the engineer or whoever. So the director would be giving direction. They'd be, oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah, okay, yeah. Settle down. Give them the time to share with you the direction that they're wanting to share. You don't have to talk over them. It was probably with the talents that I had been with before. uh, it was just a nervous tick, and that's just the way that they dealt with it. Could have been some insecurity. I don't know. For my baseline, there were times when I was nervous, but because my baseline is so low key and uh, casual, my nerves don't sometimes show. So for me, that baseline was chill. For them, that's just neurotic, right? So if you tend to be that type of person where you're like, okay, the nerves really show, trust yourself enough. You booked the job, you're there, they want you. So it's okay to just say, okay, you know what? I'm going to be still and silent. And if there is that silence, that's okay. They're driving the bus. As talent, we are not driving the bus. So it's okay to just sit in that silence and wait for somebody to talk to you. And quite honestly, we have to do it a lot. When we were in sessions in person, it was funny because especially if it was a booth that wasn't that you couldn't directly see into where the clients were, you're in a room where it's totally soundproof, which is great. You've got your headphones on, your cans, and you can hear when the engineer opens up the pathway. But outside of that, you could be sitting there for minutes thinking, "Oh my gosh, I just botched I just botched that read." That was a little intimidating starting out, but it's okay. There's going to be lots of silence, and typically, if you have a great engineer like Gopal over at Acoustic or Reed over at Westside Studios, whether you're in person or via Zoom, they're going to chime in and just say, "Hey, we just have some copy issues that we're looking at. Hey, the client's just ordering lunch," stuff like that. So, does that make sense? Okay. Number 4, maintain a positive attitude. Stay flexible, patient, approachable. And even when multiple takes are required, and even if the session is running long, don't worry. You're going to get paid for that extra time if you're doing this with an agent. If an agent already set this up for you and it wasn't you. If it's you setting this up, you may have to have that conversation afterwards. But typically, if you're going over time and you as a talent don't have anything else going on, just chill, knowing that you're going to get paid a little extra for that extra time. And if you do have another session afterward, it's okay because you are running a voiceover business. They understand. It's okay to say, "Hey guys, I really appreciate this time. We've been here for 2 hours. However, that's what the contract said. I do have another session that's coming up at whatever time. I need to be out of here by this time." They will totally respect that. For the most, I've only had it one time where they were not respectful of my time and what they told me, that they were going to, the time frame that they told me. Only one time in my 20-year career that has happened. Maybe two times. But for the most part, and especially the engineer is always there to keep that session moving on and going at a steady pace. So the engineer is a great friend for you to have, because not only are they there in your corner, but they can also argue for that when the pathway is dropped and you don't hear anything, and they take full responsibility for that. That's another sign of a great engineer. Finally, number 5, you know this already. We've talked about it plenty of times. You got to have a professional home studio, especially for the remote session. So goes along with number 1. Just ensure that everything is set up properly. Take care of it in advance rather than like a day before a session. Get it all set up. If you know that this is what you want to do, get it all set up. We're all adults. Spend that money, make the investment. You're running a voiceover business now, and then figure out what you need to do to continue to make money. And that's why this YouTube channel is here, to help give you free advice on making the voiceover cha-ching, of making the voiceover cha-ching in your wallet, in your checking account. All right. So those are 5 professional tips of what to do, or 5 tips of what to do to stay professional in a session. Here's what I do after the session. And this, I mentioned this the other day. I wanted to kind of streamline it a little bit. And it goes along with swag, because this is how I keep tabs on my clients. So after a session, I already have a spreadsheet of the year, and I'll put the date of the session. I'll put the agency that I booked the gig through. So if it's ACM or DDO in New York, I'll put that in there. Next line is going to be the voiceover, what it was for, the product. And then I've got another box that actually has the an area for any notes. So sometimes the client is the actual business. A lot of times the business is separate. So the product is separate. Say it's Chewy. Well, they're going to have an ad agency that's working on their behalf. So the client might be there, or they might be taking what you record and sending it off to the client. So in that case, the client is actually going to be the ad agency. Does that make sense? If it doesn't make sense, shoot me an email, mike@atlantavoiceoverstudio.com, or put a comment in here and I'll answer it later. So those are the separate chunks. Now, if I'm driving someplace, I'll have an area for my mileage and all that stuff just to keep track of everything, because taxes at the end of the year, unless they get rid of taxes at some point in time, could happen. But until then, we got to keep track of mileage and whatnot. So I fill that out. Anything that happens within the session, I am taking notes. So the engineer's name, typically I'll have the engineer's name beforehand. If we do a Source Connect test, either the day before, I'll be like, hey, am I going to be working with you tomorrow? Yeah, this is so-and-so from whatever studio. I'm based in New York. So that's great. You already have that name. You already have the name of the studio. You can connect with that engineer on LinkedIn. Then you can also find out the studio and the studio address. So get everybody's name in the session. If I've got a copywriter in there, the producer, the director, there could be a whole bunch of cooks in the kitchen. Try and get as many names as you can. And then the ad agency. Typically, your agent will have that. Sometimes they don't, and that's okay. But like beforehand, when I'm talking to the engineer, I'll say, hey, who are the clients that are going to be in, what ad agency are they from? And they'll be able to tell me. So take any notes about those clients and the engineer, any likes, any dislikes. You know, sometimes they chatter. Some will say, I've got 2 cats. Others, I've got a dog. I've got 3 nephews. Oh, my dog loves chewing on this play toy. Oh my gosh, I love coffee. Anything that they talk about that is relevant that you can remember later, write that down, because it can inform you on what type of swag you can send them later. Yesterday, we did a live about personalized stuff like that. That's our Atlanta voiceover studio. It's got the logo. So I could send that out to a client, not my client, but somebody who did something at Atlanta voiceover studio. So while we've got our personalized swag, it could be that some sessions, if somebody said, oh my gosh, I love Dunkin' Donuts coffee with 5 pumps of the blueberry, whatever, like Steve, who teaches our character review class. So that's something to put away. You can also just buy a gift card from Starbucks or from Dunkin' Donuts for $10. You write a little note. Great working with you. Hope we get to do it again. Slap that gift card in there, send it off to the business, and they'll get that and be like, oh, this was pretty cool. Now, before I forget, when you get with them on, oh, that's my third thing, LinkedIn. So any person who is in on that session, I'm going to hit up on LinkedIn. When I contact them or when I connect with them, I'm going to send a note. When I send that note, it's typically the day of the session, but I will mention, hey, it was great working with you on the Chewy spot recording today with so-and-so. Thanks for having me. Hope to partner up again, but you were great to work with. And typically I'll mention something that really stood out. Like for Whataburger, I just had that. I had a fantastic director. She was also the copywriter. She is probably super young, and usually super young up and comers in ad agencies, whether the copywriter, director, or producer, they don't have the verbiage of how to direct like older people have. Just because older people have, they've been in it, they know how to communicate with talent, they know the words to decipher what they want in reads. This woman was phenomenal. She is one of the best that I've ever had in my 20-year career. No doubt. She was fantastic. So I put that in there. It was just like, you are amazing. The direction, the creativity, allowing me to play in the session so that we can have fun, get all the range of the spectrum of what they might need for the spots. It was phenomenal. Anything like that to personalize it and make it authentic to you and genuine, it goes a long way. So LinkedIn, yeah, connect with them. And oh yeah, so when you connect with them, say it's Whataburger. The company works out of Austin. So I noted the company, the ad agency that they worked for, and noted that she was in Austin. Some of the other people were in Austin. Put that down. Found the ad agency address in Austin. So I sent my Mike Stout Productions swag to them at the business, and then they ended up receiving it. So it's nice and easy that way. But the business address, if they don't have a business address, if you really want to send them something, I usually will ask them. I'll be like, "Hey, is there a business address that I could send you a small gift? I have swag that people really love, and I think you'd enjoy it." Sometimes they come back and they're like, "No, I don't feel comfortable with that, but thank you for offering." And I'm like, "Cool, I get it." Other times they'll be like, "Oh, that's so sweet. You don't need to do that, but if you do, here's the address," and they'll do that. So it's okay to ask those questions. Just be okay with the outcome. Be okay with the answer that they give. So all of this, I know it takes a little bit of time after the session, but it is well worth it because A, you're going to have that client contact. You'll be able to market to them later to stay top of mind. And I mentioned this yesterday, but if you do contact them, you don't necessarily have to ask for, I can't wait until we, or say, I can't wait until we work together again. They already know. They already know. It's okay to mention it in passing. Hope we get to work together again. Keep it generic. Don't be pressure filled. And the other thing too, Heidi always talks about this. Don't give them work to do. Don't ask them to do anything. They've already got enough going on. Don't give them homework. Um, yeah. So after that, I gather up all the swag that I want to send out. I'll box it up and then put it aside to take to the post office. So that's what I do. 5 tips to being professional in a session, and then what I do afterwards. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments. And if you want real-time advice on your voiceover business, check out our VO monthly mentorship membership because it's been going since January. It's been phenomenal. It's been for me and Heidi and those involved. You can check out some of the Google reviews. Some people have posted, been kind enough to do that. We are